Last night, the judge in Diddy's case actually submitted his decision on whether Diddy's charges can be acquitted or if he can get a new trial, and he said no. So basically what the judge is saying is that Diddy's arguments that he's making in order to ask for these things don't stand. Some of the things that he mentioned in his letter, it was a 16-page letter that he submitted in response. He talked about, the whole back and forth around like with the definition of prostitution, and he's saying what Diddy is saying doesn't stand. He also mentions the fact that Diddy's team kept leaning on, at the time that people were being transported, the intention wasn't to have sex. Remember, it was like, oh, we just were inviting them to enjoy time with
conversation,
them.
yeah.
And if they decided to do that, that was their choice. The judge also he wasn't buying that as well. So the judge is saying that the judge is saying that because of this, Diddy will have to go into sentencing, and he is not going to grant any of this whatsoever.
Last night, the judge in Diddy's case delivered a major ruling that shocked not only fans but also legal experts. The judge made it clear that all motions filed by Diddy, whether to dismiss the charges or to request a new trial, have been rejected. According to the judge, there was no solid legal basis in these arguments that could convince the court. Reports indicate that the judge issued a detailed 16-page response addressing every point raised in the motions. The judge noted that Diddy's defense team repeatedly emphasized that when certain individuals were brought in, the intent was not necessarily sexual, but merely to invite them to spend time together. However, the court flatly rejected this reasoning, stating that such an explanation carries no weight in light of the facts of the case. Furthermore, the judge added that the arguments presented by Diddy's legal team were not legally sufficient to justify dismissing or restarting the case. This means it has now become definitive that Diddy will have to move forward to the sentencing phase. On the other hand, shortly before this decision, prosecutors had already submitted their sentencing recommendations to the court. This package not only included a suggested prison term, but also called for a heavy financial penalty. Legal experts believe that this case is no longer just about Diddy's personal life or career. It has now become a test of the U.S. justice system and its transparency. Critics argue that if the court adopts a lenient stance, it will set a dangerous precedent, creating the perception that wealth and fame place certain individuals above the law. But if a tough sentence is handed down, it will serve as a warning to others that the law applies equally to everyone. Diddy's fans, however, are deeply disappointed by the decision. They believe the media and prosecutors have unnecessarily blown the case out of proportion. Yet, in the eyes of critics, this ruling will clarify the true standards of justice. Now, all attention is fixed on the coming days as people wait to see what sentence the court ultimately hands down to Diddy and how that decision will impact both his future and the music industry.
And at the same time, like right before this letter came in, the prosecutors, they begin submitting their sentencing package. Now that sentencing package is almost 200 pages long. And in there, they say Diddy should serve 11 years and 3 months and also pay up to $500,000 in fines.
The judge's ruling has brought Combs' case to a decisive turning point. Once the judge made it clear that the appeals and arguments submitted by Combs' legal team were not acceptable on any grounds, the matter moved directly into the sentencing phase. The judge stated that the defense's claim that the defendant's intention was not to engage the women in sexual activity, but merely to invite them to spend time, was contrary to the facts. The court also dismissed the idea that these events happened with the women's free consent. According to the judge, both testimony and evidence prove that these acts were carried out in an organized manner, with clear signs of abuse of power. On the other side, as soon as the ruling was announced, prosecutors submitted their sentencing recommendations. These recommendations, spanning nearly 200 pages, included not only evidence, but also testimonies from the women who claimed that Combs' actions had left deep and lasting negative impacts on their lives. Prosecutors urged the court to impose a prison sentence of 11 years and 3 months, along with a $500,000 fine. They argued that this is not just a sentence for one individual, but a message that powerful people are not above the law. The prosecution further stressed that a lenient sentence would not only be unjust to the victims, but would also send a dangerous message that wealth and fame can earn special treatment compared to ordinary citizens. The case has sparked heated debate in the media. On one side are Combs fans, who regard him as a legendary artist and argue that his contributions to music should not be overlooked during sentencing. They point out that Combs revolutionized the music industry and inspired millions, and believe that should count in his favor. On the other side, however, many critics argue that now is precisely the time to hold powerful figures accountable. According to them, granting Combs leniency would mark a dark day for justice and the rule of law. The conversation has spilled over onto social media as well. On platforms like Twitter and Instagram, hashtags such as Justice for Victims and Accountability for All are trending. A large number of users are demanding justice for the victims and insisting that Combs should face the same punishment as any ordinary citizen. Still, some voices are raising questions about whether the evidence is strong enough to justify such a severe sentence. Legal experts, however, note that the arguments laid out in the prosecution's recommendations are compelling and could strongly influence the court. In particular, they emphasize that if the court adopts a lenient stance, it will set a damaging precedent for future cases. Experts believe that the judiciary now has the chance to set an example, and that it is highly likely the judge will take the prosecution's recommendations seriously. Meanwhile, the lawyers representing the alleged victims have stated that this case is not just about one man, but about the credibility of the entire justice system. According to them, if the court is truly impartial, Combs must be given a harsh sentence so that no one else dares to commit such acts in the future. Combs' legal team is still preparing its defense, but analysts say that after the judge's latest decision, their chances have diminished significantly. Now, all eyes are on the upcoming hearing where the final sentence will be announced. The case has become not just a matter of interest in the United States, but a subject of global discussion, as the world waits to see whether the court will truly hold a powerful figure accountable. Combs' legal team is still preparing its defense, but analysts say that after the judge's latest decision, their chances have diminished significantly. Now, all eyes are on the upcoming hearing where the final sentence will be announced. The case has become not just a matter of interest in the United States, but a subject of global discussion, as the world waits to see whether the court will truly hold a powerful figure accountable.
Not only from her, but also her parents submitted a letter on the prosecution's behalf. Her ex-stylist and a really close friend, and also someone who's formerly a friend of Diddy's, a guy named Deontay Nash, and a few other people submitted some letters. And in Cassie's letter, she talks about a lot. One of the biggest things that she says is that she feels like her time on the stand shows why people don't really care for victims or care to protect victims. She says, the jury and, all these people watched her testify about everything that happened to her, all of the beating, all of the bruises, all these things. And still, there were a lot of things that Diddy's not going to have to answer to in court. But the things that he will have to answer to, these 2 counts of the Mann Act, he should. And it is it's an injustice to allow him to serve a lesser sentence because of anything. She talks about still having nightmares over the situations that she's been through with Diddy. She talked a little bit about the suicide attempt that she talked about on the stand as well.
Cassie's letter to the court has proven to be a critical turning point in this case. In her statement, Cassie not only spoke of her personal pain and experiences, but also highlighted how the entire justice process has raised serious questions about the protection and rights of victims. Cassie wrote that when she stood in court to testify, she spoke with complete honesty about the abuse she endured: beatings, violence, bruises, scars, and emotional torment. Yet she felt that the justice system failed to fully listen to or value the suffering of victims. According to her, while the judge and jury heard her words, many crucial aspects were overlooked, and Combs was not held accountable for them. She called it a great injustice that despite such serious allegations and evidence, Combs is only being held liable under limited charges, such as the Mann Act, while other matters are being disregarded. Cassie insisted that if the court truly wants to deliver justice, it must impose a harsh sentence, not a light one, so that victims know their struggles and sacrifices were not in vain. Cassie also revealed that she still suffers from nightmares reliving those events. She reminded the court that this chapter of her life continues to weigh heavily on her heart and mind. She even spoke about her attempted suicide, something she had already shared during her courtroom testimony, explaining how these experiences shattered her life into pieces and took years to recover from. Another crucial point in her letter was the way victims are often treated by society. Cassie wrote that when a woman speaks out about her trauma, people doubt her, accuse her of exaggeration, or question her motives. She stressed that such attitudes not only obstruct justice, but also inflict additional suffering on victims, forcing many women to remain silent about their abuse. She urged the court to make Combs an example so that future victims feel assured that if they stand up for justice, their voices will be heard and respected. Cassie's parents also submitted a letter in support of the prosecution. They wrote that they had witnessed their daughter endure years of pain and felt her suffering up close. They pleaded that no parent should ever have to watch their child go through such horrors, only for society to then deny her justice. They asked the court to deliver a ruling not just for Cassie, but for all women who have been victims of abuse. Additionally, Cassie's former stylist and close friend, who at one time was also a friend of Combs, sent a letter describing Combs' long-standing behavior and abusive patterns. Their testimony, along with others, painted a collective picture for the court. This was not the story of just one individual, but a shared experience echoed by multiple people whose accounts reinforced one another. Legal experts believe that Cassie's letter, along with the others, could have a powerful impact on the judge's decision. The court is no longer looking only at legal arguments, but also at the human stories of the victims, which inevitably make the judgment more sensitive. Cassie made her point clear. If Combs receives a lenient sentence, it will not only be another personal blow to her, but also a devastating message to all victims, that powerful men can always escape justice and that victims' voices carry no weight. Following the release of Cassie's letter, the case once again became the center of public debate and social media discussion. Many are now asking, will the court truly acknowledge the victim's suffering and hand down a strict ruling, or will a celebrity once again be granted leniency? One thing is certain, Cassie's letter has deepened the debate over justice and accountability, and the spotlight is firmly on the judge's final decision.